1243 AD. The steppes of Eastern Europe stretch endlessly beneath a sky thick with smoke and screaming. The Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous land empire in human history, is in the middle of doing what it does best, conquering everything that breathes. Genghis Khan's successors have already turned China, Persia, and half of Russia into a very flat memory. Now Batu Khan and his general Subutai, arguably the greatest military mind who ever lived, are pointed west with 150,000 of the most terrifying cavalry the world has ever seen. But let's change one thing. Screaming out of a cloudless sky at Mach 1.6 is something no shaman, no Khan, no god of the steppes ever prepared anyone for. A Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II dropped into a battle it was never supposed to be a part of. So what happens when the most advanced fighter jet on Earth is unleashed against the greatest land army in human history? Can one flying supercomputer stop an empire that once stretched from Korea to Hungary? Or is it just one pilot against 150,000 horse archers who genuinely do not know the meaning of the word retreat? Let's talk about what we just dropped into the 13th century. The F-35 looks like something a medieval blacksmith would see in a fever dream and then refuse to describe to anyone out of sheer self-preservation. At 51 feet long, wrapped in radar-absorbing material, it carries the radar signature of a large bird. A very fast, very angry bird with missiles. Its AN/APG-81 radar can track targets from over 80 miles away. The helmet-mounted display lets the pilot look literally anywhere and shoot in that direction. 6 infrared cameras give 360-degree vision through the aircraft skin itself. The pilot can see through the floor of his own jet, which, if you think about it, is a power no Mongol general ever needed to worry about. The weapons loadout for this medieval nightmare includes AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles that cruise at Mach 4 and kill from 30-plus miles away. That's farther than any Mongol arrow ever flew in its wildest dreams. AIM-9X sidewinders that lock onto engine heat and pull 60G turns to chase down anything trying to run. And an internal 25mm rotary cannon that fires shells the size of soda cans at 3,300 rounds per minute. One squeeze of the trigger and a mounted cavalry charge becomes a very different kind of charge. Now, about the opposition, don't let the horses fool you. The Mongol army under Subutai is not a mob of guys on ponies. It is the most sophisticated, coordinated military machine the medieval world ever produced. Subutai himself has personally commanded campaigns across more terrain than most modern generals could find on a map. He's won battles in snow, desert, forest, and steppe. He's used feigned retreats to lure enemies into kill zones, coordinated armies operating hundreds of miles apart through signal fires and fast riders, and adapted his tactics against every kind of enemy he's ever faced, and he's faced all of them. The Mongol cavalry fights in disciplined units called Arbun, Zun, and Minghan, tens, hundreds, and thousands. Their composite bows can accurately strike a moving target at 200 yards from the back of a galloping horse. Every rider carries multiple mounts, meaning their operational range is essentially unlimited. They live in the saddle, they eat in the saddle, some of them were probably born in the saddle. Their heavy cavalry punches through shield walls. Their light cavalry harasses, encircles, and exhausts. And their generals, particularly Subutai, are masters of using terrain, psychology, and speed to destroy enemies twice their size. They have no radar, no radio, no anti-aircraft weapons. Their longest range weapon travels maybe 300 yards before gravity wins the argument. They cannot see above 1,000 feet. They cannot move faster than 40 miles per hour on their best horses on their best day. The F-35 can cover 40 miles in about 2 minutes. Let's set the stage. The year is 1241. The Mongols are pushing through Hungary after annihilating the Polish-Hungarian coalition at the Battle of Legnica. 100,000 Mongol warriors are spread across the Hungarian plain in a classic encirclement formation. Subutai is coordinating multiple army groups simultaneously, preparing to sweep the remnants of European resistance into a very tidy pile. At 0600 hours, the F-35 pilot gets a radar picture that looks like someone knocked over a box of moving dots across 200 miles of open country. The combat computer identifies formations, calculates speeds, flags concentration points. It is, frankly, the greatest target-rich environment a fighter pilot has ever seen. There are no buildings to avoid, no civilian air traffic, just endless flat steppe and 100,000 horsemen who are about to have a very confusing morning. The first AMRAAM launches with a sound like tearing silk. 40 miles away, a Mongol heavy cavalry formation is trotting confidently toward the Danube. One moment, they are the most feared warriors on Earth. The next moment, a streak of smoke appears from nowhere and a section of the formation simply ceases to exist in a ball of fire and supersonic shrapnel. The horses scatter. The survivors stare at the sky. There is nothing there. Not a bird, not an arrow, not a cloud. Just death arriving from a clear blue sky at Mach 4. The second missile is already in the air. Subutai, monitoring from his command position on a low hill, receives reports via fast rider within minutes. Explosions with no visible cause. Warriors dying with no enemy in sight. He has fought every kind of army on Earth. He has never received a report like this. He does what any great general does when confronted with new information. He changes the plan. Riders disperse his formations. Units spread out. The Mongols, masters of flexible warfare, immediately stop presenting concentrated targets. This is where it gets interesting. Because spreading out is exactly what keeps you alive against medieval cavalry and exactly what an F-35 pilot dreams about at night. Dispersed formations are now dispersed targets. The pilot sweeps north and drops into a shallow dive, cycling through sidewinders on the lighter cavalry units harassing the Hungarian rear. The infrared seekers don't need much heat. A horse at full gallop generates a solid thermal signature. The missiles don't care. They find what they find and they deliver the message. By mid-morning, 3 major Mongol cavalry formations have been disrupted. Smoke columns mark where discipline used to be. Horses scatter in every direction. The battlefield psychology is fracturing in ways that Subutai, brilliant as he is, has no tools to repair. Because the Mongols' greatest weapon was never the bow. It was fear. Entire kingdoms surrendered rather than face them in the field. Cities opened their gates. Armies collapsed before contact. The Mongol reputation was a weapon as sharp as any blade, and it worked because they had never lost, never faced anything they couldn't adapt to, outmaneuver, or eventually destroy. And now something is killing their best riders from 30 miles away. They cannot see it, cannot touch it, and cannot run from it. Richtpanai sends 50 of his best light cavalry to find the source, the sharpest eyes in the medieval world, scanning the sky. The F-35 is at 40,000 feet, utterly invisible. To the riders, it's a distant glint on a clear day, moving faster than any bird they've ever tracked. 3 of them point. The other 47 look up. The pilot, watching from above, sees the cluster of heat signatures stop and converge. The 25mm cannon is a last resort. But for a cavalry unit standing still and looking straight up, it is a very efficient one. The pilot makes a single strafing pass, supersonic, screaming. The cannon rounds arrive before the sound does. The reconnaissance unit is gone before the echo fades. On every frequency of human terror available in 1241, every warrior within earshot receives a message they cannot decode. By noon, weapons are nearly spent. The fuel situation is straightforward. There is no JP-8 jet fuel anywhere within 700 years. This is the last run. The pilot designates Subutai's command position and releases the final 2 missiles in a ripple fire sequence. 2 impacts, 3 seconds apart. The coordination apparatus, the forward planning network, the operational map, all of it burns on a Hungarian plain. The Mongol advance stalls. Not because 100,000 warriors disappeared in a single morning, but because Subutai lost his ability to coordinate, and the psychological foundation that made the Mongol war machine unstoppable now has a very visible crack running through it. The legend that spreads through both sides of the war is not about missiles or radar or stealth. It is about a demon that flew faster than a hawk, screamed louder than thunder, and made the greatest warriors who ever lived scatter like startled deer. Somewhere in a tent on the Hungarian plain, a very thoughtful general named Subutai sits down and, for the first time in his life, writes a battle report he genuinely does not know how to explain.